Hello, everyone, and welcome to Leadership Satsang. The reason why I call this as Leadership Satsang is because it's a good company of great leaders. This platform is about having those good discussions to become great leaders. Satsang is being in the company of good, isn't it? So when we all come together, we create that goodness for each other by becoming good people, good individuals ourselves. My name is Yukti Kapoor Mehndiratta, and as a leadership coach, I think I found my calling in both coaching as well as leadership. I think that if we work on our ability to lead, then we can make any organization a great place to work. And when organizations become great places to work, then no matter what we work, whatever jobs we have, we will enjoy it a lot more. And when you start enjoying your job, automatically you are far more productive, isn't it? And with that higher productivity, money follows, fame follows, popularity follows, opportunities follow. And that's what makes life a lot more fulfilling. So, this is a chain reaction, and it starts with you, it starts with me. So, thank you so much for connecting with me for this leadership satsang today. I want to talk about decision making. One of the most important areas of leadership is decision making. So, how does that play a role? What if we are, not so sure about our ability to make decisions? What if over a period of time we made so many wrong decisions that now I feel safer in not making any decisions at all? What if decision making becomes a phobia? Now, phobia could be a very big word to use here. It might be an extreme situation, but if we have already started feeling uncomfortable about making decisions, then let me tell you, we are headed towards making it a phobia. And before it gets there are a few things that you can do or anybody can do who's not so comfortable in making decisions. And that's what I want to touch upon. It comes from a question that somebody asked me in my leaders community on WhatsApp called SEL Mastermind. This is a community where leaders from different sectors come together, and on WhatsApp, I use self reflection as a tool to help them develop one skill every month. So, on the month in which we were going deeper into decision making, this was one of the common questions asked, that how do I overcome the fear of making wrong decisions? And because I wanted to give the best solution possible, I did a lot of research and a lot of reading, and not just operate from two things or five things that would come to my mind. And when I went deeper into that research, I realized that it is one of the most common pain points that many people have. They are not comfortable in making decisions. People are much more comfortable in being led than to really lead. Being a leader could be a very secret, quiet aspiration for people, but most of us are very happy following. Why? Because when you follow, you know that somebody else can be blamed if you are headed in a wrong direction. And that somebody else is a leader, and that leader is not you. So it is safer. Our mind operates in such a manner that it keeps reminding us that it is about survival. The whole life, every endeavor, every action is about being able to survive one day at a time. And the best way to survive is to not take risk. The reward that you get for not taking risk is to feel safe. And in that safe zone, sometimes we spend a lifetime. And then we become a somebody who gets lost in this huge space outside where you're actually, in terms of your contribution, a nobody. You don't create a mark. You're not able to leave a legacy because you're not allowing yourself to make those decisions, which can sometimes go against the tide and sometimes with the tide, making it stronger. So, let me tell you two things before I talk about how to overcome this fear of making wrong decisions. There are two things to understand, guys. Okay, the first thing is that when we talk about fear, we know that fear is an illusion, but we don't understand that. Fear is an illusion because it is the figment of your own imagination. It is the mind that has made something or someone so fearful to you. Otherwise, if it was a reality, then the same thing would be just as fearful for everybody. But that's not the case. There could be this someone in your life who you're very fearful of. But that someone is just another Tom, Dick, and Harry on the road for someone who has no connection, no relationship with that person. You know what I'm saying? Right? So we've made this someone, this boss, this peer, this father-in-law, mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, whoever in your life who gives you that feeling of fear. We've created that feeling. It's your own creation in your own mind because it's not real. It's not the same for everybody else. Even if it's fear of reptiles, there are a few people who love reptiles. If it's a fear of public speaking, which is right at the top still, right, the highest, at the highest level, fear of public speaking more than death. Yet there are people who enjoy public speaking. There are people who make a living out of public speaking. They don't find it so fearful. So if it's not the same for everybody, then it's probably not real. It is an illusion. So the first thing that we have to do is to look at making decisions as a skill in the I, saying that whether or no I realize, I make a lot of decisions in a day. And that holds true for each and every one of us. You decide what to wear, what will you eat for breakfast, will you have lunch or not, will you attend this meeting or miss it, will you participate or not, will you open an email, if you do, what is it that you will write, or each one of these things is a decision that you're making. What time will you go back home, what route will you follow, will you call a friend back, will you go for this party or not, all of those are one of the many decisions that you make in a day. But when it comes to a few important ones, is when we get that sense of fear, which can come from various places. And I'll talk about that in a bit. But that's the first thing in this entire statement, the heading itself, fear of making wrong decisions. Fear in itself is hollow. There is no substance in any fear. We add content, substance, power to any fear. So let's understand that, and then we'll find a way to deal with it. The second part of the equation is about making decisions, making wrong decisions. Now, what we need to remember is that not making a decision is also a decision, isn't it? If you've decided not to decide, that is also a decision. The problem with this decision is that now you have no control over the consequences. You're not taking charge of the situation. You very conveniently park the blame onto somebody else. But unfortunately, you are the one who will have to go through the consequences of it. Now, you can blame me for making a wrong decision, but it is you who is going to suffer through it. So, doesn't it make sense that I be responsible for whatever mistakes that I have to live through instead of me living through the mistakes that you make? That makes no sense at all, isn't it? So, when you are unable to make a decision, you will never take responsibility of those consequences. And yet, you will have to live through the suffering that it comes with. So, ask yourself, is it better to make a decision and go wrong? Or is it better to decide not to decide? I hope you go with the former, because when you make that decision that might sometimes go wrong, there is always a learning, which, if you remember, will come handy the next time you make a similar decision. And trust me, the gravity of that mistake, whatever that mistake might be, however big it might be, it starts reducing. You will make lesser and lesser mistakes, definitely not similar ones. So there is merit in understanding that fear is an illusion, and then understanding that making a decision is much more important than not deciding at all, thinking that it might go wrong. So if you've understood that, then let me go ahead and tell you a few things about overcoming this fear. I'm going to share with you my mind map because that gives a structure to our entire discussion. So I love mind maps, okay? And I think you should use them too. There are so many tools available, and you should just pick any and start playing around with it. You'll get a grip of it very, very easily. Okay, so interestingly enough, the fear of making decisions, or if I may say, irrational fear of making decisions, actually has a term, and that's called as decidophobia. Decidophobia is a term given to irrational fear of making decisions. Now, when you suffer with this decidophobia, what happens is you become even more indecisive, which leads to procrastination. Because you're indecisive, you're not able to figure what to do, this or that, you will procrastinate. When you procrastinate, it leads to even more bad decisions, right? And that leads to more regrets. The more you regret, the more this phobia will become real for you. Are you getting how cyclic this is? Decidophobia, space where I'm fearful of making wrong decisions, is making me indecisive, which makes me procrastinate, which leads to bad decisions. That results in me regretting what I'm doing or what I have done. And every regret confirms to me that I am scared of decisions because I go wrong with it. See, I regret about this one also. See, there's another regretful decision that I have made. Now, how do you break this pattern? You've got to go a few steps back. So let me talk about the symptoms first of all. Now, see, decidophobia is a very extreme space where there are physical changes happening to you at a body level if you become that uncomfortable with decision making. But having said that, even if you don't suffer from these symptoms that I'm about to share with you, please know that any restlessness related to decision making is taking you one step closer to decidophobia. So be mindful of these symptoms as much as you might not really be suffering with them so actively just yet. Okay. So you could feel increased dependency on somebody else. Means whenever you have to decide something, आपका मन करता है कि एक बार ही फोन करके उसको पूछ ले कि वो बता दे कि मेरा डिसीजन सही है कि नहीं या वो मेरे लिए ये डिसीजन ले ले. That friend of mine, that sister, right, that my mother, that one person who I run to if I have to make an important decision. And that's a dependency, which means if that person is not available, either you will replace this person with another person or you will postpone the decision altogether, which is procrastination, which results in bad decisions that leads to regret. So you see how you get stuck there in that cycle. If you're suffering with this symptom, you know that you need to pick up a few things from what I'm going to share with you today and get out of this pattern, break the pattern. You could also feel anxiety, panic attack. There could be some muscle tension you're experiencing or excessive sweating, right? These are some of the, extreme symptoms of decidophobia. Now, what causes this? There are multiple causes, but these are the 5 most common causes that come to my mind. Okay, first is you think that this decision will have a very significant impact on people I care for, my family, my children, my spouse, my parents. So you worried for them and you think that there is very small, very little chance to go wrong. I don't have that margin to play. So it's better to take time to decide than to just jump in. That could be one reason that you would procrastinate. Or you think money plays a role here. If I spend, then if I've invested, I've invested. There is no going back on it. And hence I want to take more time than needed sometimes to make that decision. Or it's fear of missing out. Or, this is something that involves a lot of work. If I get started, then I might as well go all the way. Otherwise, it'll take too much work and then I'll have to come a few steps back. Sometimes it's also peer pressure, right? That makes us delay decisions or fear making wrong decisions. We don't want to look stupid. We don't want to go wrong. We don't want to admit that, even at this age, even after this much experience, even after this much success, I can go wrong. And that's when it becomes so difficult to take risks as you go up the corporate ladder. You would see so many people who are probably at a CXO level, and I meet quite a few of them almost every day, where there is an innate desire to do something different, to give themselves a chance. In fact, if you would ask them, what is it that you would love to do before you die? Or what is it that you would do in exchange of everything else that you have? They'll say, I just want to give myself a chance to do something different, offbeat. Now, some people might call it a midlife crisis. I call it being risk averse. You've come to a point where you think there is so much to lose that you can't make a decision which will take away your reputation, or so you think, which will make people laugh at you, which is a very big price to pay for you, given that you are where you are. And so becomes that much more difficult, and this fear starts seeping in much deeper, the fear of making wrong decisions. So what do we do about it? What is the solution to this very big problem? And it is a very big problem. It's not just about understanding the decision making process step by step, which is one thing to learn for sure. It's a tool that needs to be learned. There's a method there. And maybe one of our LinkedIn lives, we will spend time on understanding the decision making process. But given that you know it, what can you do to overcome this uneasiness, this restlessness about going wrong with the decisions? So, here are 5 solutions that I want you to take back today. The first is to understand that life is not binary, it's not 0 or 1, it's not right or wrong, it's not black or white. There is a lot of gray in between. So, calling a decision a right decision or a wrong decision is an incomplete understanding of the situation at the first place, right? क्या राइट है क्या रॉन्ग है, सब्जेक्टिव है, रिलेटिव है, कॉन्टेक्सचुअल है. किस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में क्या राइट है, दूसरे कॉन्टेक्स्ट में वही चीज रॉन्ग हो सकती है. किसी एक इंडिविजुअल के लिए जो राइट है वो किसी और इंडिविजुअल के लिए रॉन्ग हो सकता है. कोई भी डिसीजन अगर आप राइट बोलते हैं कि ये डिसीजन राइट है, वो किस एक्सटेंट तक राइट है, और अगर रॉन्ग है तो वो किस एक्सटेंट तक रॉन्ग है. देयर इज एन एक्सटेंट टू विच एनीथिंग इज राइट, there is a context to which anything is right or wrong. So we have to stop thinking in a binary fashion. We need to look at the gray in between what we think is absolute right and then there is an absolute wrong, knowing that there is nothing like that that truly exists. No matter which decision you pick, any decision from your life, कुछ भी आप उठा लो जो आपको लगता है कि ये मेरी लाइफ का सबसे अच्छा डिसीजन था, उसमें भी कुछ नेगेटिव एस्पेक्ट्स होंगे. और अगर आपको लगता है ये मेरी लाइफ का सबसे बुरा डिसीजन था, उसमें भी कुछ प्रोज होंगे. समथिंग, सम सिल्वर लाइनिंग exists there too, right? So that's one thing that we need to understand very, very clearly and operate from there, right? So train your mind, program your mind as much as you programmed your mind to be scared, to be fearful of making decisions. It's your program that you have fit in there. हमारे सबका brain is like a supercomputer, right? And we all understand that computer has no brain of its own. कंप्यूटर का ब्रेन है जो प्रोग्राम्स हम डालते हैं और वो प्रोग्राम की बेसिस पे ऑपरेट करता है. दैट्स एग्जैक्टली हाउ आवर ब्रेन वर्क्स. व्हाटएवर प्रोग्राम यू हैव फिट इन, your brain is going to just follow that. All you need to do is reprogram. If the program that is in your brain is not serving you, then you need to reprogram it and bring in the language that will serve you better. And that is the language which falls between an absolute extreme, between the 0 and the 1. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. The second way to overcome is to know what your core values are. So I'm a leadership coach, and in coaching, we spend a lot of time with our coaches to help them understand their values. And values are always like a set of positive qualities. Okay, no values are bad, no values are negative. But there is this core value, which is the driving force, which is your center point, which is your consciousness. It is your moral compass. It is something that helps you decide what is your right and your wrong. And when you don't listen to that or you don't live up to that value, you're not able to sleep so well at night. And you know that the reason for that is related to what I'm not feeling right about. My value is not being served. I'm going against my value. When you know your values, which means consciously spending time on asking yourself, what are some of the values that I believe in, that drive me, that defines my character, it becomes much easier to make decisions. Because then you can filter the decisions, the options that you have in a particular situation basis what goes down with your values. So shortlisting हो जाता है, right? अगर 10 options हैं, ये 2 तो मेरे values में ही fit नहीं हो रहा है. If my value is honesty and I think that बस यहाँ पर मतलब dishonest होना पड़ेगा, तो 10 में से 2 option deleted, 8 के साथ मुझे deal करना है. So it helps you to feel happier, more fulfilled, more complete with whatever decision that you will make, whatever you will choose from the rest 8, right? So knowing your values is about spending time with yourself to understand What are some of the successes you've enjoyed in the past and what values were driving that? What are some of the failures and what values were not adhered to? What is a good memory from the past? What is a bad memory or a mistake that you have made? And you will clearly be able to identify what are the values that drive you, what was missing there, and what was operational there when something good happened. Okay, so knowing your values is a very, very important part of making right decisions. The third way is to learn how to strike a balance between your head, your heart, and your gut. Your head, which will give you intellectual inputs, your heart, which is going to drive you with emotions, which are very, very important for making decisions. Please don't underestimate the power of emotions. You need to feel right as much as you think it is right. And then there is your gut, your instinct, your intuition, which comes from your experience and knowledge. And that drives you sometimes. Now, it's not always that these three talk in the same tone. Sometimes there is a lot of khichdi. Noise, बहुत ज़्यादा noise हो जाता है when they are contradicting each other. And it happens sometimes. Your head is saying something else, your heart is saying something else, and your gut is guiding you elsewhere. That's when it helps to just bring it down on paper. So when I was going through a very, very important decision this morning, and I was thinking about what is it that I want to talk to you guys, and I thought this striking the balance is a very, very important point. So I took the opportunity to actually use this in one of the decisions that I have to make. So I picked up a pen and paper and I made this very beautiful masterpiece, okay, of me. And this is how good my drawing is. So you can appreciate me later for this one. But this is me. And my head is saying these few things about the decision I have to make. My heart is saying something else here. And my gut, which is my solar plexus below my chest, that part of me is saying something else altogether. When I put it down on paper, it became much easier for me to see what are the commonalities and differences in what my head, heart, and gut is saying. And that's when I saw the connection, which I would not have been able to see had I not put it on paper. So ये paper पे लिखना एक बहुत ही अच्छी exercise है. Pen and paper has its own power. हम लोग mind में जितना भी सोच लें, अगर हम paper पे लिखें तो clarity आना बहुत आसान हो जाता है. तो आपको ये exercise अपने लिए करना है. When you pick up something important, some important decision you have to make, and write down what your head is saying, what your heart is saying, and what your gut is saying, and see how can you strike a balance there. Okay, that'll take you towards making a better decision, a right decision. Fourth way to do that is to not just look at the best case scenario, but also the worst case scenario. If my decision was the problem statement I was looking at, just okay, I'm absolutely okay to share it with you. I was thinking I want to do something for the youth. I want them to become great future leaders, and I have multiple thoughts on this. ये भी कर सकते हैं, वो भी कर सकते हैं. कौन सा एज ग्रुप पे फोकस करना चाहिए, कौन से प्रॉब्लम एरियाज पे फोकस करना चाहिए. Multiple thoughts, on my mind. So when I look at the worst case scenario, now the worst case scenario is that we launch this program for future leaders and it doesn't take off. That's the worst case scenario, right? Worst case scenario is not that we don't launch it only, then we've not decided, right? We've decided not to decide. But if we've decided that, okay, we're going to launch it and this is what we're going to go ahead with, the worst thing that can happen is it will not be a hit. In that, there is still an opportunity. In any worst case scenario, there is an opportunity. And the opportunity here is to create that connection with the youth so that I can hear from them, from the horse's mouth, what is it that they want to look at? What are their problem areas? While in the process of delivering to them what we think will be a good offering, of course, depending upon a lot of research, work, homework, blah, blah, सब कुछ करने के बाद, अगर हमने एक product सामने रखा, और अगर मेरे ऑडियंस को लगा कि मजा नहीं आया, ये नहीं चाहिए था, this is not it, I will definitely learn something from this experience. So any worst case scenario that you can imagine after you've made the decision will also come with an opportunity that is not always so obvious. But if you pay a little attention, you'll be able to identify that opportunity. And that takes away the fear because there is a clear learning. And every learning is a step forward, isn't it? The last point And one of the most important points in decision making is to bring in self compassion. You need to remember that you're a human and to err is human. We all make mistakes. There is no one on this planet who's never made a mistake, except for those who just don't want to learn. Because if you wish to learn, if you wish to grow, if you wish to make a difference, you will make not just a few, but many, many mistakes. What's important is to learn from them and take one step forward at a time. Self compassion reminds you that nothing is perfect. Perfection is another illusion. It is our imperfections that makes us more real. And those imperfections will help us understand how to learn from the mistakes that we make, will allow us to make those mistakes. The more you accept that you are just as imperfect as anybody else on earth, the more willing you will be to accept your mistakes too. So please allow yourself that space to breathe, to be, to make mistakes, and to learn from it. Plan the worst case scenario, knowing there is an opportunity hiding behind. Strike a balance between your head, your heart, and your gut because all three of them wish real well for you. They are your true well wishers. They're saying something, and that might not be in the same tune. You need to speak to all three of them and get them to sing a chorus for you. Know your values because that's your moral compass. And don't get stuck between the extremes of right and wrong. Know that there is nothing right and there is nothing wrong. It's a matter of perspective. It is dependent on the context and the situation that you're dealing with. Any fear and every fear is an illusion. And the more you bring in the light of knowledge, the easier it gets for us to break out of that illusion and come back to our reality, our life as humans who are allowed to make mistakes, but also have the capacity to learn. So thank you so much, guys. That's all from me today. I would love to hear from you how useful you found this live session to be. What are you taking away from the session? Please do follow us on LinkedIn, on Insta. SBY Academy is our handle. And also, most importantly, catch me here once again next Tuesday. And in between, if you have some questions that you think I should pick up, I'll be more than happy to do that. So write to me on Yukti at sbyacademy.com, and I will definitely make space for those questions and bring them in our subsequent live sessions. So thanks once again, guys. Farida here is saying take the decision and then maybe go wrong. It's a learning. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Farida. And thanks everyone who's joined in here. Shekhar, Bharat, Shefali, Trilochan Nayak ji, everybody, Nitin. Thank you so much, Megha, Bharat, and everyone else out there who took the time to join me live. Means a lot, guys. As much as I do research and spend time, bringing this content together, ensuring it's relevant for you, it all becomes worth it when you show up and join me for this live session. So thank you so much. God bless you all. Please write to me with your specific questions in the domain of leadership, and I will do my very best to address them. I'll see you very soon next Tuesday, right here at the same time, at the same place, 7:30 p.m. Take care. God bless you all. Thank you so much. See you.